Hi, I'm Maggie Mesa, and today is my birthday. I also get to be filming episode 2 of my Freaky Friday Wellness interview series. And because I'm working on my birthday, I figure I'm going to make it a conversation about something I care about, and that's accepting your sexuality and becoming embodied and happy in a passion filled life that also includes the art sales and fun things like that I get to do. So I'm calling in two of my friends to help me with this conversation. One is Steph Renfro. She designed this set and also works at a local sex store, Blue Boutique, that is well known for having a really good line of products. And the other is going to be my friend Katie Monk. She's an artist and has been super supportive of me personally as I've transitioned into the career that I'm in now over the past few months. There's no two better people that I think could help guide a conversation for the next hour or so in these interesting and detailed topics. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm really excited to bring this for you. Okay, so hi everybody. It's Maggie and I have Katie and Steph on. How are you two doing this morning?
So good. Thanks for having us.
So good. I'm really happy that you are both here. And to give you a quick introduction, Katie and Steph are two of my friends. Steph, as I went into a little bit in my intro to the chat itself, works at Blue Boutique, which is a local sex shop, and helped me to design the set that I am in front of here and does a lot of event setup. And Katie is an artist and one of my personal friends who has really been a part of my journey in supporting me through the last few months as I've gotten my art sales set up. So for my second episode of Wellness Chats, since it's my birthday, I brought everybody some treats. And I wanted to just delve a little bit into the conversation of what it's like to embrace or accept your sexuality in a conservative state like Utah and how that interweaves into wellness and what you both have done for yourselves, either professionally or artistically, to come to a place of happiness and acceptance in your sexuality while living in a conservative place like Utah. So it's a big conversation to open it up to, but I'll just throw it out there and let's kind of just see where it goes.
Awesome. So excited to talk about this. I don't even know where to start.
I know. It's really amorphous and large, but also awesome at the same time.
Yeah, definitely having lived in Utah for almost 5 years now, it's definitely been interesting to watch people's relationships with their sexuality and kind of how the level of repression here affects everyone on an individual level. Definitely very interesting.
Now, where were you from originally?
I grew up moving back and forth between the Midwest and East Coast, so kind of not one particular place, but I will say most of the places I lived tended to be upper middle class, white dominant, like privileged, conservative communities. So even though I haven't been in Utah for that long, I feel like a lot of the places I've lived have had similar attitudes surrounding sexuality and that type of work. So definitely not new to the like repression and yeah, I guess almost puritanical ideas towards sexuality for sure.
And Steph, you grew up in Utah but with a Mormon family, right?
Yeah, I've lived in Utah my whole life. Like I've traveled a little bit here and there, but I grew up like pretty Mormon. Um and like my parents, I feel like raised me really well. I just feel like the constriction between society and like Mormon, it just nothing ever meshed. And so I always got confused because I was like, well, I just don't get it. I was like, I just, I appreciated what I learned, but it got to a point where I was like, there's gotta be more, especially around obviously sexuality and like how women empowerment and how women are able to express themselves. And I think it kind of started with fashion, because I always knew I wanted to be a fashion designer. And then it got to the point where I was 16 making my own clothes, and I wasn't allowed to wear most of them. And I was like, no. I was like, you can't tell me what to do. That's kind of like the breaking point, and then it kind of just started it all. So I definitely respect how I was raised, but I feel like I was raised in that way to kind of shed light on topics that were shoved into the dark, essentially.
Yeah, there's two things that both of what you brought up makes me think about. And one is the artistic aspect of sexuality. And the other is the shedding light on it aspect. And one of the things that Steph, you and I had talked about is being really drawn to what would be conventionally considered sexuality from a young age, but in a very kind of artistic aspect. And I remember talking to you about just enjoying lingerie from the aesthetics of it alone, of just like lace and flowers and textures. And I think it was a little bit of an understanding for me to be able to even identify that as like an interest in it aesthetically versus an interest in it kind of organically or physically even. And the other side of it is what conversations that we went through in kind of the shedding light on it, what that actual process was to be able to help anyone else that could be watching this in the future. Like, how do you come out of those type of kind of very familiar family structures that it sounds like all three of us grew up in? And what's the actual process of starting to accept how sexuality weaves into our art, or how it weaves into our light, or our life instead of light? But
well, I guess like for me, it started pretty young. Like I always loved like burlesque, and like I went to the ballet, and I just saw how like bodies were expressed, and I started loving it from a young age, like the lingerie and stuff, because I was pretty insecure like growing up, as like probably most Mormon like ladies. But I grew to like love lingerie because it made me feel sexy, and I would go out and do photo shoots. I would used to do like photo shoots of lingerie. And then it wasn't until I was like, okay, I really have a path in this, until like I started going through a lot of challenges, and I was like, okay, I thought of myself as a little girl, and I was like, I wonder like what I would tell myself as a little girl. And so my thing is like, I just expressed myself how I have always wanted to. And if I ever get shame or anything about it, I just tell myself, well, as long as you're inspiring 1%, the 99% doesn't really matter. As long as there's like one person that sees you and it's like, wow, like I can really be inspired by this person. And so that's kind of where it started. And I just kind of was like, I'm just going to be myself. I'm going to do what I want, and do what I feel like is my path. And that's kind of how I found Blue Boutique, just kind of following what I thought was what I wanted to do. And it turns out to be right, because I was like, I just stayed true to myself and what I thought I always wanted to do. And I landed up at Blue Boutique, and now it's around me every day, like seeing insecurities in these women that come in, and they don't know how to shop for lingerie, or like their husbands tell them to wear a certain thing. And it's like, it always is very triggering to me, because that's how I was raised. And so I look at them and I'm like, okay, like what would I tell myself when I was in that phase? And so that's kind of how I am able to like help people through like my art and like career and everything like that. And I kind of weave it into my art, and I just express myself very sexually, even in like my space and how I create. Like it's always been very sexual for me. So everything that I create, it's more of the energy behind the senses, And so sexuality through the eyes and the touch and even the smell. So it's not, sexuality isn't very, when I'm creating, isn't very physical. It's more of like what you're seeing and how it makes you react. So
A+ answer. That was so much
like I
awesome packed into a couple minutes.
About sexuality, like this is a great topic.
No, I mean, if I could literally like put a bow on a sound clip and just be like, everybody that is like in the 16 to 20-year-old mindset right now, like listen to what Steph just said, and that's it.
Yeah, I've definitely had a lot of experiences that have got me to this point. So, but I'm very grateful for it all.
Well, and I think one of the reasons I enjoy both you and Katie a lot is what you just said resonates a lot with conversations that I've had pretty much almost verbatim with Katie, when one of the things Katie and I got to do was go down to Goblin Valley, and it was one of the least busy days of the year. And so both at sunrise and sunset, we got to just do full nude photo shoots in the middle of Goblin Valley. And it was like this moment of just like, ha ha ha, ha, I am running around a national park nude, and this is fantastic. And pretty much any other day of the year where it wouldn't have been the same. But like kind of coming off of that experience, and Katie, what are your thoughts on it? Accepting your own sexuality and how that interplays with art and who you are and being in all Utah.
Totally. Well, one thing that was coming to mind when Steph was talking was just like how big of a role social media has played with like personal and I think collective perceptions of sexuality. Honestly, I think being able to see women who are super strong in their sexuality, whether it's through modeling or through dance, I mean, especially I'm pretty into dance, and I have like a few different like little sections, whether it's like the ecstatic dance community or there's like body confidence or even like all the way to the twerk classes. Seeing some of those women who very publicly represent themselves and who are into those communities, it's like seeing that level of confidence and just how they are like fully embodied in their sexuality and like embracing that side of themselves, I think is super empowering. And I think it's been really helpful for not only myself, but like tons of women I know, being able to like see women on these platforms. And it's just another example for me of how it's like, yes, social media has its problems, like it can trigger insecurities, and like of course there's going to be issues, but I think it's one of the ways that social media has had a huge positive impact on like helping women feel more empowered just by seeing that represented. I think has been really awesome. And then going to the Goblin Valley shoot, that was amazing. That's the first time I did a full nude photo shoot. And first of all, you made me feel so comfortable with myself. So thank you. You are an angel.
Well,
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was super awesome. There's definitely something about being with someone who is equally like body positive and is kind of like cultivating that space of allowing other women to feel empowered. That was super awesome. And then to your point of the intersection of that with art, I think it's really interesting because on one hand, it's like, yes, that helps me help myself feel empowered and embodied with that side, like my sexual side. But at the same time, I almost feel like as I've played with like nudity and yeah, just, I don't know. I guess what I'm getting at is I almost feel like there's a level of trying to make it so that nude images are less inherently sexualized, because I mean, it's just a body. And the more I think about it and the more I kind of like see pushback from like whatever random dudes on the internet, I'm just like, it's so interesting how people react so explosively to the human form when I'm like, we're literally animals. Like, it's literally just, I was born in this meat suit. And the fact that some people get so triggered or like angry or like just the full range, the full spectrum of reactions that people get to seeing just the pure human figure, when I'm like, it's just our bodies. It's like the most natural thing in the world. Like it's the most basic thing that we have. And so, yeah, being somewhere like Utah where the human figure is so heavily shamed and sexualized, it is really interesting being an artist who's like, wait, but it's this natural thing. And one thing I keep thinking of seeing both of you is I didn't hear this until I lived in Utah for a couple years, but a term that I learned was that apparently Mormons use to like shame women who show their skin is porn shoulders.
We're both
Which I think is the
so
funniest thing I've ever heard. I'm like, bitch, how are you gonna sexualize shoulders? For real? You're really gonna sexualize shoulders? That's where we're at. Okay.
I had an experience when I was younger. We were driving from Salt Lake down to Vegas to see a Rolling Stones concert. My parents were as conservative as they are, love the Stones. And we stopped in Price or Cedar City, one of those little towns. And my parents were very conservative, but not Mormon. So I had a tank top on. And the woman behind the counter at the McDonald's told my mom that she was raising a slut for a daughter. And I was 12 and I had a tank top on. And I remember just being like, I'm so confused. And like, I literally was confused. And I just moved from Boston. So shoulders were not inherently the sign of the devil there. And I didn't understand what was happening. And I mean, welcome to Utah. But the other side of what I was thinking, and it kind of turns back to stuff a little bit too, of acceptance via social media, that I was talking to another roommate of Vita the other day about this too, of how people that are younger than me are catching up so much to emotional sobriety or emotional maturity because we have resources. Whereas I had to like Google emotional abuse for the first time because I didn't understand what it was. And those concepts are coming up so much now on social media that we can educate ourselves. And we can also be proactive with our sexuality on social. And turning it over to Steph a little bit, one of the things Steph also does is run some of the ad campaigns for Blue Boutique and some of the social media. How do you work with some of the themes of acceptance on social and in your ad campaigns? Like, how does that interplay with what you're doing publicly?
Well, yeah, like you said, social media like is such a great resource nowadays, and like for us, like we kind of like just had to wing it until social media came along, and then it came along and we had all this resource. So I kind of accidentally found myself like on social media as a platform, like pretty young. And I was always kind of like the outcast, like just creating whatever I wanted to create and doing whatever I wanted to do, and on social media. And so I kind of just stayed true to that vision. And then I did a little bit of social media for free people too. And I really enjoyed it, but it felt a little too constricted for me. And so I kind of left that and then found my way along the way to Blue Boutique. And Blue Boutique is kind of like this outcast, like, it's like, I don't know what it's doing in Utah, but it is. And I'm so grateful it is, because Utah needs something like Blue Boutique to kind of like bring light to this like subject that people are afraid of. So I found my way kind of doing their campaigns and stuff like that. And I think it helps that the mission behind Blue Boutique is just kind of like, I don't know, it's like, it's a beautiful yet quirky kind of business revolved around sexuality, and they've kind of always just done their own thing, and so have I. So it kind of just worked. So I have this platform that they've gave me, and they allow me to create how I want to create and express sexually with how like our photo shoots or other people's photo shoots. So it's a beautiful platform. I try to keep it like somewhat conservative because our customers are conservative, but I try to really just kind of like let it free flow and kind of be as open as I can with our campaigns. And I kind of mix art into it because I think it's important when you're dealing with sexuality and like the naked body, it's always important to bring that art in. So with our campaigns, I try to keep it really artistic. It's kind of quirky and kind of weird and circusy, like my own aesthetic. And my boss, like we have kind of a similar aesthetic. And it's kind of worked for so long. And so I'm grateful for that because it gives me a platform to create, and then it gives them kind of an artistic communal side of their campaigns where they can this local company can relate to local artists and how we can create. And I've seen like so many artists come in, like you included, that come in and shop at Blue Boutique because we kind of have that energy that we're just open to everyone, and whatever people want to do. There is no judgment there, and I think that's why I like it. It's because I've never been judged there, and no one ever is judged there. So it's very open, and so we try to communicate that with like just how we project to the public and just say, hey, like this is who we are, like you're welcome, and we're just here to like have fun.
One of the things that I like about Blue Boutique, and I always have, is there's a couple of things. One is their community involvement. They've just been active from the beginning, whether it's in gay rights or it's in drag show sponsorship or Area 51's FetLife Night. Like they're just involved in the counterculture community of Utah, which needs to happen so that there is some sort of a middle ground. And also they've gotten themselves, Katie and I went on a hike yesterday, and having her not be from Utah, I was trying to catch her up on Blue Boutique's history. And I mean, they got themselves picketed back in the day. And the new location, when they moved from the really grungy one in Sugar House to the newer one in Sugar House, like they had people like setting up cameras, and they would post pictures on the internet if anybody went in to buy a dildo. Like it was.
Yeah, I was there at the time, but it's been a huge thing for so long that the state is just like, and people are just like, this is not okay. Like you can't expose our children to this, and it's like, actually, we're helping your children because you don't tell them what sex is. So we're here to help them, and I think like it has been fun to be involved in that side of the community. Like I never was until I moved to Salt Lake, and then I'm like, wow, like Salt Lake really does have a beautiful like counterculture, like the drag you said, and the burlesque. Like there really is such beautiful people here, like hiding like diamonds in this city inside all the conservative people. But
could I pop in and kind of ask,
yes,
I guess a prompt / question? So one thing I think about a lot, and especially living in Utah, is just, I mean, as we all know, I'm sure, men in the, porn industry, all of these industries are making millions on millions of dollars profiting off like women's sexuality. And yet there are actual studies done showing that women who reclaim their own sexuality and like sell it personally themselves rather than through a middleman who's making most of the money, it's like women who reclaim that get hated and just like get all kinds of like venom spat at them. And I guess the question would be like, what does it look like, or what are the challenges of being a woman who is reclaiming that and is like basically like taking charge? And yeah, what does it look like reclaiming that, and what do you have to deal with in that process?
Oh, that's a that I totally agree. Like people, it's like porn stars are like put on these pedestals, and it's like, are they happy? And then you have a woman that's just doing it themselves, and they're happy in what they do. Their energy behind it is really pure. But I think a lot of when you are reclaiming your sexuality, you have to, I don't know, at least for me, it was like reclaiming my power back meant maybe losing things that I loved. And so just kind of like staying true and like realizing that my power is not too much. Like no matter what anyone says or no matter how many like people I lose in my life, it's if as long as I am like in my power and in my truth, then it just doesn't really matter. And so I think it really does scare people when women especially reclaim our sexuality, because it is very powerful. It's something like religion has shunned for like thousands of years, because when women reclaim our power, it's very powerful and we do have the power to do whatever we want. So I think that's why people are afraid of it. But it is very important to reclaim that power.
Kind of scary when women might be able to have all the power and we don't get to control them anymore.
It's like we can like
attack
it's like
women, like we're coming to get you. It's a zombie apocalypse over here on the Zoom call. Starting with porn shoulders. It's the first sign that's
it makes me think of that quote that's like equality feels like oppression when you're used to like being in power, or like when you're used to having like that level of privilege. I forget what the exact quote is, but something like, yeah, like women wanting equality feels like oppression to men when they're used to having all the power, basically.
Yeah, and I think a lot of men don't quite understand it. And I would consider myself like kind of a feminist, but I do believe men have a lot of power too. It's all about like that balance and like respecting each other's awakening process. But yeah, it's like, it's interesting to see how men sometimes do respond to women's empowerment, because it's new. It's very new for our society. So
totally. And I mean, I do consider myself a feminist, and I think that feminism is equally for men as much as it is for women, because as much as it is for women not being pushed down and repressed and all of those issues that we experience, it's like it's just as much for men, so that they aren't confined by the structures of, oh, you don't get to have emotions, you don't get to express yourself in healthy ways, you don't get to have deep intimate connections with friends. I mean, one thing I think about all the time is, as a woman, I get to have like deep intimate relationships with other women and like have these emotional conversations, and I know how healthy that has been for me, getting to process through all of these different things. And then I think about men that I know who like probably their girlfriend is the only person that they can talk to that way. And that A, puts all the emotional labor on the woman in the relationship, and B, means that they have nearly no outlets to like learn, grow, express themselves, have healthy conversations. And so it's like, I totally think that feminism is just as much to help men break out of the like the structures that they are kept in that like basically emotionally imprison them, as much as it is for women to stop having all of these expectations put on them and have their sexuality sold back to them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do see, like, I love working at Blue Boutique because I do get to see that a lot. A lot of men come in, and a lot of them are, even if they're straight or like whatever partner they're interested in, they are more feminine and they like to express themselves feminine. So they like, I know straight men that buy lingerie just because they like it. And I think it's beautiful that like both genders are expressing however they want. It's really fun.
I also think it's really interesting to see how, I mean, so when you have women who are like tomboys who want to be more masculine in their appearance, that's generally pretty accepted. But when you have men who want to express themselves in a way that's feminine, they are shamed so hard. And I think that's really interesting because it's just a reflection of how femininity is like hated and shamed, you know, on like a subconscious level, because it's like, oh, it's okay for women to maybe present as more masculine, but as soon as men try to present as more feminine, suddenly that's like super taboo and not okay. And I find that very interesting, and like what that says on a larger scale.
I think that's absolutely true. I also think that there is not a lot of space for men to present, and I understand that like we're all women talking about men's sexuality now, but I don't think that there's always a lot of space for them to present neutrally either. There's like the toxic masculinity of like, you know, fuck boobies, basically. But then, like, in the opening of the space that I've created with the art sales, there can be this acceptance of just the understanding that it's okay to be sexualized or to sexualize someone. And that in and of itself isn't inherently negative, and the conversation doesn't need to be shamed away from existence. And even creating the transactional aspect of like, you find me attractive, here's a set of pictures, give me some money for it, and good. It almost creates this relief where there's the opening of the conversation and the naturalization of the process that has only ever been constricted to these like sub corners of society, or this top like hypersexuality. And I mean, it's one of the arguments for either the legalization of prostitution or all sex work in general, or at least the understanding of the acceptance of sex work, because I think it creates a healthy, natural middle ground for everybody to exist in. And I mean, Katie, actually, that's a good segue. Katie, you've helped me a little bit in the process of monetizing the art that I do. And Steph, you work in this already, so you're in the actual like sex work business. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on people that do want to commercialize or exist in that space? And what is that like for both women and men?
You go first.
I was just going to say how important consent is, and just how important it is to have like clear boundaries on what that looks like. Because with someone like you, Maggie, it's like you are super clear about like, this is what I do, this is what I'm willing to put out there, like this is how this is going to work. And I think it's really awesome to see like how clear that is. I think that sometimes it is interesting because it's like if someone were to approach a random woman on the internet in the same way that they would approach you, like, hey, like, can I pay you for nudes? And that hasn't already been put out there, then it's like, what, like, what gave you the idea that this is an okay thing to ask for? So I just think like that consent and communication goes a long way in like creating that space where those like exchanges can happen in a really healthy and positive way.
Yeah, that's a good point. Consent is like a huge thing. Like I think it's an ongoing lesson for all society. But I think for me being in, I never thought I would be in like the sex work field, but now that I am, I'm so grateful for it because I think it's important to view sex work as a profession. So it is treated very professionally. So when people when people are just like, I want nudes, it's like, no, this is somebody's job. And I think like realizing just like everyone's body is different, then everybody's motive behind their work is different too. Like somebody maybe doing sex work as just like an art or just for fitness. Like I know a lot of people that just do it to stay in shape. While some people, there might be a single mother of 3 that's providing for her children. You never know people's motives. So I think it's always like respecting people's like output and profession and keeping it very professionally. Even like if you consume sex work, it's you like remembering that you are helping these people like provide for themselves and like maybe a family. So it's keeping the intention very pure behind it. And just like if people want to get involved, I think it's great because more and more people are getting in tune with their body and people want some way of expressing it. So I think all the power to them.
I posted on my story a little while ago that I shouldn't have ever taken my parents' money for college, and I should have just stripped my way through an art history degree. And I put it up there, and I was like, that's a bold statement. And then I was like, what, am I standing behind it? And like, I didn't take it down because I stand behind it enough that, you know, if the conversation could be changed enough that those who wanted to engage in it for whatever reason, that if it's a fitness, if it's a dance, if it's an aesthetic, if it's a lingerie type thing, are able to do that and can make clean, ethical money. Again, I think it creates more of that neutral ground for both men and women to exist in, that it can be a benefit to society. I'm not advocating for it for everybody. I'm not saying like, moms, drop your 17 and, you know, one day under 18 kid off at the club and tell them to hit the pool. But I am saying, like, if that is a professional track that somebody wants to take to endeavor, that eliminating the shame from the conversation can, I think, provide a societal benefit long term. Katie, how do you feel about that?
I mean, because the thing is that basically the niche for that demand to be met, like that exists regardless of, it's like that is gonna be met. So you might as well have it be met with people who are willing and like excited and consenting to do that kind of work and fill that need, you know? And I think it's really awesome to have women who are able to take advantage of that like demand and make money through that. And it really is interesting how you're saying, like, basically to try to remove the shame from that, because it's like, you know, you don't we don't have this level of like, oh, like shaming men for going to clubs, or, I mean, in Utah, there's kind of an element of shame for people who consume porn, but that's like a whole
that's its own podcast.
Yeah.
That's its own episode.
But yeah, I feel like it's just like I said before, where it's like we've had our sexuality sold back to us for so long that I feel like being able to reclaim that without shame is so important. And I mean, I personally know women who have like used stripping or become a dominatrix to pay for their education, and have honestly had such awesome experiences doing that because it's consensual, it's in a safe place, and they have a safe space to do that. And to your point, like, that is why it's so important to have sex work be legalized, because the more it is legalized, the more we can like cultivate actual protected safe spaces for those exchanges to happen in. Because like I said, it's going to happen regardless of what the legal status is. So you might as well have it be protected, safe, like, and just overall like set up in a way that's going to be positive for everyone everyone involved, you know?
What do you see on your end, Steph, from the kind of health or self-care perspective of anyone that is monetized in sex trade, not sex trade, or sex work specifically?
Well, I think it's obviously important for people to like take care of themselves. And if they are in sex work and it's too much, then obviously they should choose a different path, because it is, you are putting your body out there. So it's like you have to almost consent with yourself, like what is okay for you, what is not okay. Especially like, I mean, I'm even like in my line of work, like I'll consent with myself, be like, is this too much to put online, or is it not? Like, is it going to help somebody? Like you said, create that safe space, because especially in Utah, like, growing up Mormon, I like know that stuff is going to happen, like whether people want to realize it or not. And so people just kind of shy away from it. So I think it is important to put yourself first in like all situations revolving your body, because it is your body. Like, and I think that's why I initially left the church, because your body doesn't belong to you. And so it's like, I was like, I want control over my body and my emotions and my sacredness. So it is important to like put yourself first over even money sometimes. I know that is hard for a lot of people, but it is important to take care of your body first.
It's awesome that you've been able to reclaim that autonomy. That really struck me, the like when you're part of the church, your body doesn't belong to you. Whew, too real. I know so many people that have like, I mean, yeah, living in Utah, having so many friends who have walked away from the church, just getting to a level of like being okay with your body and being okay. I mean, just not having like shame about having a body, you know, is so huge. And it's awesome that you've been able to like come back to that place of personal autonomy.
Yeah, it's like, I think a lot of physical reclaiming my body, it was mental too, because I was just so conditioned a certain way. Like I should do this, I should marry this person, I should do this career, like wear these clothes. And I think
We've got 5 kids
yeah,
within 6 years that you're married.
at this age, and then now I'm at 27 and I'm like, been there, done that. That wasn't for me. So I'm like, now I'm just like, I think it's an ongoing process reclaiming. It's constantly for me. Like there's been a few instances in my life where I really reclaimed my body back, but I think it's almost daily, just being like, what do I want to do today? Like, how do I want to treat my body? It's just, it's always nonstop. So it's really fun and scary at the same time, but.
And there's an emotional reclaiming too to that. Steph, I had explained earlier, or we had talked a little bit earlier, that even though my family's not Mormon, the process of me becoming the person that I am today in a lot of ways is very similar to a gay kid coming out with a Mormon family. I feel like my parents shamed me, did not like it, sat me down for lectures. I mean, when I did a shoot a few years ago for my birthday, there were some really beautiful, really elegant pictures that when my dad saw, told me I'll never work again in the state of Utah. I mean, he was kind of right, but you know, making it work anyways.
That's your choice.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like, fine, I'll just hang out with people that work at Blue Boutique.
Gonna hang out with weirdos.
Yeah, exactly. But so it was very much coming through that. And Katie, what you were referencing a little bit too is some of, and I'll post them, some of the just like horror-phobic messages that I get. I really have to remind myself every day that this is a form of expression. It's a form of creation, that I love what I do and I'm happy that I am monetized in it. And that that is one extension of many other parts of myself, and that I get to fulfill those other parts of myself as well, but that I have the right to be who I am and express myself the way that I am. And I would rather be in integrity to what is true for me than to be in alignment with Salt Lake societal guidelines. And that's a daily reaffirmation to a certain extent. So,
and it's like a gift too. It's like alchemy. It's like you're transmuting energy, and good and bad energy. None of it is bad. It's all just keeping it in balance. So I think when you're embodying that, you're alchemizing your energy and keeping the light and dark and balanced. So I think it's really beautiful.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. I feel like I have kind of created my own little witch's brew of a person that is me. And it's okay that there is that one extension. And when I can not shame that and highlight it and celebrate it, I become a more powerful person that other people enjoy being around. And I'm guessing that Joey will probably be wanting to pop in here soonish and tell us ever we're right around a 50-minute or hour-long time. So
It went
I
so
wanted
fast.
to say,
You're both so nice to talk to.
I know. And I really wanted this to be a low-key conversation. It's exactly what it's turned out to be. Both of you are interesting and important people to me, and I think in the Salt Lake community. Do either of you have like parting words or thoughts that you've pinged off with this conversation you want to make sure we touch on?
There was one thing that I was thinking about just now, which was, I guess, I think about Madison, who you both know, and I think she was one person who was pre-COVID organizing event that was called Do Both, where people were going to be both stripping and also like, I think reading poetry or giving like short, like not lectures, what am I trying to say? But you get my point. But basically like showcasing.
Presenting on something that's not sexualized.
Yeah, but basically showcasing how people can both be really strongly sexually empowered and also extremely intelligent, like wonderful, smart humans. And I just wonder, like, have you been pigeonholed as being someone who is like just like a sexual character on a social media feed? Or like, is there anything that you do to try to like integrate like your full self and not just be seen as that? Or I mean, and also it's fine if your like public self is just that sexual side. I'm just curious to hear, I guess, what you think about that, or like if there's anything you do to try to represent your full self.
I'll answer first and then pass it over to Steph. I really make sure that I emphasize both my intelligence and all of my interests as being a piece of the pie. I absolutely utilize my sexuality and the art that I create and the type of social media graphics that I've kind of become lightly infamous for. I make sure that I'm posting the best ones at the best time to get the most amount of likes. I use it for analytics. I market myself sexually. I am not afraid to utilize it in every extent possible to the benefit that it can be towards me. But I absolutely do make sure that I hyper emphasize my intelligence and my other skill sets as well. Through the creating of this production series, I've made sure that the marketing portion started first. The marketing portion is on a rotation of topics, only one of which is sex. The same will be for the wellness series. Sex will be one of 5 or 6 different things that I talk about. And even with my social, I'll post like a banger naked selfie, but then I'll post like the you and me go on a hike one, knowing that it'll get less likes, but wanting to make sure that I'm still emphasizing that. And I'm going to be building into the outdoor vlogs now also that it's so pretty out, and making sure that I'm still doing all the adventurous stuff also. So I think it's okay to pigeonhole. There's a lot of girls that do. I support them absolutely. My business plan has always been that consulting is equal. So while I will utilize my sexuality as an asset, I don't allow it to be exclusive either, which is my personal stance. So, Steph, I'm interested in your answer too. And great question. Thank you.
Well, I think you're very smart in the marketing sense, and I think it is cool when people that we have that knowledge and we have that education and that power as an entrepreneur, as a marketer, to kind of like integrate that into sex work and sexuality. I think it is important to like, it definitely is important to keep it balanced. Like I think for me, I keep it very professional. Like Blue Boutique is like sex work, but it's very, I keep it like as a job, and I try to like when I come home, I like clock out and I'm just like myself. And even with my art, I've built this kind of like business and lifestyle around my art, and it is very bright and sexy and intimate. And although that is who I am, there's also another side of me that people don't know, that's very quiet and shy and that just like wants to be in nature with horses. Like there's just like there's just so many different aspects. And I think for me it's just keeping everything, knowing what energy goes in what place, so I can express myself very sexually, but then as a business. But then when it comes to relationship, expressing that sexuality in a very intimate and quiet, sacred way. So just kind of knowing where my boundaries lie with every aspect of like my business or my career or just like my personal life. But it is sometimes hard because it is like I built this whole life and I love doing it all. So it's like it is hard to keep that balance, but I try to just check myself, like if it's intertwining too much, trying to just separate it a little bit and kind of like pour into each bucket. Like my colorful business pours into my personal life and my personal life pours into my career. But just knowing where all that is coming from, and then just kind of making time for myself because my career is very out there, just kind of like creating that space for myself to evaluate where I want to take it and my intention behind it. Just keeping that all very clear in my head. So.
Well, great answer, great question, great people, a great overall way to spend a little bit of time on my birthday.
Yeah.
And again, yay! May I go into the next year of my life just as slutty as I rounded out the last one. The irony being, of course, that I am single through this all.
I know, if we had a little bit more time, the one I kind of wanted to bring up your dating profile that we were talking about yesterday, but we don't have to get into that if you don't want to. I just thought
next time. Next time. And you know, dating through sex work is its own conversation probably. So yeah. But to spin it back, I'm glad for both of you. I'm glad that I get to spend my birthday doing things like this that I really care about. I've been able to build a life for myself that's really fulfilled and meaningful, and putting together this little video series whenever I'm doing it. It's been a creative endeavor, and you both have been really supportive of the series. You've both been supportive of me as a person. So I wanted to say thank you for joining me. And if there's any like profiles that anybody should be following or any way that anybody could support either of you, let's go ahead and throw it out, and then we'll sign off so that Joey doesn't have to spend all of his day listening to three girls talk about sex on a live stream.
What? Who doesn't want that?
I mean, if you've got to edit somebody else's Zoom call together, at least I'm keeping it interesting with the type of content we're bringing next, right?
You want to go first?
Me? Okay. Yeah. So you can follow Blue Boutique on, I think on Instagram we're Sexy Blue Boutique. On Facebook, I believe it's just Blue Boutique, one or the other. Either one. I also will be making a group page for Blue Boutique probably this weekend. And it's going to be a discussion page rather than a business group for people to be able to talk about sex work or like just ask questions, and we'll have all of our trained associates on the profile to answer questions and whatnot. And then my personal,
I want to.
Yeah, it sounds fun. I've been wanting to get this idea going for a while, so we'll hopefully I'll get that up this week and post it to the Blue Boutique page so everyone can go and join. It's kind of going to be like more of a private group, but and then my personal, well, it's kind of my business, but personal too. It's Luna Love Child on Instagram and Facebook. And then that's where I post all of my like styling and clothing and art and events. And sometimes I'll post behind the scenes of like my Blue Boutique campaigns and stuff like that. So that's where you can find me.
Sounds awesome.
And my personal is at Monk of Cups on Instagram, and that is where you will see all of my food, art, the occasional edited naked photo, because I know that's why y'all here. And then my art exclusive is just at Katie Monk Art on Instagram.
And just to round out real quick, I will, of course, throw my own fundraiser in the show notes. My last little pingy thought was you had mentioned Madison and other performers. I was thinking about having Madison in this conversation, actually, and didn't want to under focus on her talents either. So thought that I might have her on for another segment later, specifically. And other performers like totally Rosie Winter, and then totally spacing on her name.
Michelle.
Yeah, Michelle's belly.
Those three powerhouses.
The powerhouses of Utah. And I want to, even though they have no association with us at all, just to say I really appreciate all that they are doing as well. And I thank you for having this phone call with me. I think that it's a great conversation. I hope more people are having this, and I hope anybody that might see this in the future could reach out to any of the three of us, or to just know that the process that they're going through is healthy, and that loving themselves is a great way to start creating a world where you can love others also. So
thank you so much for having us, Maggie, and happy birthday. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. It was so fun being on here.
Yeah, it was great to have you both. Gonna go do some gardening for the afternoon. And Steph, I know you're gonna go work, so I'll let you go now.
We're gonna go, you go garden your birthday suit, we'll go work.
Yes, I will do exactly that. I will see you both later.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Katie and Steph. I really appreciate you for joining me on my birthday and for episode 2 of Freaky Friday Wellness interview series, Accepting Your Sexuality in Zion. That was a great conversation. I had a lot of fun having it. It was also just awesome to see a couple people that I really care about on a day that's special to me and engage in a conversation that I think is both meaningful for myself and hopefully other people. The point of this entire series is to have all of the gritty and sometimes controversial conversations about how we become who we are and how we can be as embodied and happy as the people, as our own humanness, so that we can give that back to others and make the world a little bit of a better place. So the first episode was transitioning through trauma, and then we have this episode on accepting your sexuality. I'm going to go into yoga, I'm going to go into food stuff, I'm going to just dig into all of the really cool things that I want to talk about and give forward to other people that have made me who I am, and that I hope will help other people become a little bit embodied in who they are also. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being a part of my journey. If this content or anything else is meaningful, please consider contributing to my fundraiser. It's how I'm paying forward all of this editorial budget and how I'm using my consulting and art sales to pay my own bills and get myself a little bit ahead in the activities that I care about also. So anything that you do for the fundraiser really makes a difference for myself and all of the creatives and makes all of these segments possible. Thank you so much. I'm glad that you were able to join me a little bit in an experience for my birthday, and I can't wait to bring you episode 3. Take care.